getting a late start to today's video. Welcome back, guys. Hope you guys have all been doing amazing. I have been going through a ton of stuff in this whole transitional period of my life. A lot has been happening that's been going on. I've been doing terrible at keeping you guys in the loop of everything. You guys have literally seen me go from being in a relationship for 5+ years, then living in a hotel for a month while still making videos for you guys. And now I'm living in an Airbnb, but now I'm gonna be moving into my own place, potentially. This has been one of the hardest phases of my life, especially because at the same time while I was making these videos for you guys and stuff was starting to pick up, I also was just enduring so much. So thank you to all of you guys who have sent positive vibes, who have been here through supporting the videos, messaging me on Instagram. You guys are all amazing. And this is only the beginning, and I have so much more yet to come. I absolutely promise you guys that. It's been a lot to keep up with the videos and everything, but everything is gonna get easier in time. But anyway, we gotta head over to the shop. We're gonna film an update with my good buddy Ronnie's car. There was a little mishap that happened when he hit the dyno recently. If you guys don't know or you're new to the videos, I'm gonna play a little clip from one of the previous videos I made so that you guys will remember or be in the loop of what happened. And I can show you guys what he's done in that time, how he's bouncing back from the issue, what's going to change it this time around when it's strapped on the dyno, and show you guys some of the other madness that goes on in the shop. And I know you guys are stoked on the new daily. The Yar will be missed, but I absolutely love driving this thing too. Also, shout out Sergeant Zach for the bubble. I appreciate it, bro. It is it's a good one. I like it. I'm obsessed with this song. Lil Uzi goes hard. I ain't got no Snapchat home. Ronnie called and asked if I could grab something at Home Depot before I got to the shop. Any guesses what it is? So I'm here for some Scotch-Brite pads, but I need to know which ones Ronnie needs because they got copper ones, they got small ones, big ones. Oh look, there he is. Hey, there he is. There he is, look. Hey, which one do you need? Look, there's like a good amount of them, like sizes. Here it is, guys. This is the key to success for Evos, apparently. In case you guys are new to my videos too, oh, that scared the crap out of me. In case you are new to my videos, and sometimes I fail to like acknowledge this or say it, we're at 5150 Racing in Santa Ana, California. They do a lot of Evos, GTRs. They also do Subarus and other cars as well, but they're mainly known for Evos and GTRs. Let me show you guys some of the goodies they have in the shop right now. They got a ton of cars, seriously. The man Corey, if ever you guys need quotes or anything, this is the manager right here, the man who will make it happen. Well, you need money too, but you need money, but he'll make it happen too. These are some of the cars that are here. Like I said, GTRs, Evos, they got other cars too. This is actually, this car right here, I actually want to get a ride in very soon because Ronnie built this car for Shift Sector. It made 760 on 5150's dyno. This car has, I think it's like 6,000 miles or something. I'm gonna open the door just to creep. It's got, okay, the battery's dead, but it's got really low miles and it's already like fully built, which is nuts. There he is, the legend himself. What's up, there you go. What's up? Yeah, I know. It scares you? What's up, dude? How are you? Yeah, no problem.
We're set for Scotch-Brite for life, dude. Alright, so we had a little mishap on the dyno. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the parts to show you because they're already at the machine shop. I kind of tore it apart the next day. So what happened was it actually popped the head gasket at 36 pounds of boost. And it wasn't anything head related, it wasn't anything block related. What it was actually the head gasket itself was weak. And you know, you live and learn. Now I have the experience of telling people not to use that certain head gasket. The fire ring on it wasn't that, I'm trying to see if I have a head gasket to show you. So. Okay, so this head gasket, there's a fire ring in the middle right there, okay? Even this one isn't all that thick. So on the JE head gasket, the fire ring was very thin. And so what happened is it actually shot through on the back of cylinder number 3 and on the side of cylinder number 1. So again, I wish I had the parts to show you guys, but basically what happened is it lifted the head for a split second and it shot through. So you know, I came over there looking for a rod and you know, it wasn't the rod. So it was like 12:30 in the morning. You know, everybody's tired, you know, it was going great, and then that happened. The car actually made 620 wheel at 36 pounds, and John actually let off at 6 grand because of that. So that was probably a 650 wheel horsepower run, and that was at only 36 pounds. So again, turbo is capable of at least 10 more pounds, at least, without choking. So it was going great, but that happened. But I already got a ported head. Like literally the next day, thanks to my boy Jesus. Took it to the machine shop, we checked it out. The head was milled a lot, so what we have to do on that head is we have to actually sink the seats a little bit to prevent the pistons from coming in contact with the valves. So I'm also utilizing a Cosworth head gasket this time around, which has a nice fire ring. It's a very nice, very well built head gasket. It has like 5 layers, and then there's a very nice fire ring on there, so I know that's not going to be an issue. On top of that, we're most likely going to end up O-ringing the head. Now, I'm going to take the head gasket to my guy. He's going to look at it, and we're going to see if we can O-ring it and where to O-ring it, because obviously you can't have 2 like fire rings sitting on top of each other, because then it's going to space out the block on the head. Now the cooling passages aren't going to, you know, seal perfectly, so there has to be a fine balance. But if we can get it perfectly right, the O-ring will definitely help the head lift and head flex. Also cracked the head the same way I did on the last one. If you guys remember the last head I had actually cracked at every valve seat. So that was kind of happening with this head too. It was a very minute crack, but it was still doing the same thing. So definitely getting a lot of flex. This actually should be around 11:1 compression. So it's, you know, it's definitely moving some air, man. There's a lot of pressure in that chamber. So today what we're gonna do is, obviously we're gonna reveal it, as you guys can see. We put oil so it doesn't rust. Now the reason we did this, let me go back to this. So on dyno day, when that first happened, we didn't notice it's a head gasket because it wasn't physically right in front of us. Everything looked okay over there. The radiator hose popped, okay? Now, from my experience and from what I've seen before, whenever you lift the head, you will actually pop a freeze plug because that's the closest thing to the combustion chamber. So the head will lift for a split second, the combustion pressure will go in the water jackets, and then it'll shoot out the freeze plug because this is the closest point, okay? So when I look at it, I'm like, okay, the hose is popped off. I'm like, all right, great, we just popped the radiator hose. So John goes to take a break, and you know, I start cleaning up the dyno. I start pouring water in there. I put a gallon. Okay, maybe it emptied a little more than a gallon. I put another gallon, but this isn't making any sense. I put a 3rd gallon. I'm like, okay, this is definitely not making sense. So we're like, okay, let's just pull the spark plugs for a sec. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Before we do that, I grab my flashlight and I'm like, I have a feeling there's something popped. So I come over here, and sure enough, I wish I could show you guys, the gasket literally bulged through there. I'm like, ah, there's the problem. So yeah, we kind of got some water in there, so that's why there's a lot of oil in there. Now what we're gonna do today actually is, I know the bottom end is good. If you look over here, Josh, over here, so over here on cylinder number 4, can they see the imprint of the rings?
Yeah, you can see it.
So what happened is that thing rocked really bad. When the gasket popped, that thing pretty much like jerked like this. And on the stroke side, it actually left an imprint on the wall. So as you can see, there are 2 spaced out, perfectly spaced out lines. Those are actually where the piston rings sit. So you can feel it with your finger a little bit, which is, you know, something you don't want. Your car was running even after that. After it popped, it was running for a few seconds, no smoke, nothing. So even though some people can just call it and, you know, just leave it like that, you know how I am, and I can't do that. So today we're gonna pull the pan, we're gonna get that one out, we're gonna take a look at the rings, see how the rings are, because most likely it transfers a little bit of material on the walls. So if that's the case, I'm gonna have to re-ring it So I gotta get a ring pack from CP. And as far as the cylinder goes, either quick hone or even with some light sandpaper, I could probably get that out. You know, it all depends on, you know, the first, you know, if I go the first pass, how it looks. Again, this is my car, this is my motor, this is my money, so, you know, I feel comfortable experimenting with different ways. You know what I mean? Obviously that wasn't a planned situation, you know, it just happened, but, you know, it just gives all of us an opportunity to learn from this. So, you know, if this were to, God forbid, happen to someone else, you know, you'll know what to do, how to fix it, and, you know, how to do it in the car. Could have been a lot worse. The car was making power. It's gonna be back hopefully by the end of next week and on the dyno again. Mark my words. I'm determined, man. I pulled this thing out the next day. I came into work and I'm like, I'm gonna pull the head before I even did anything else. So I pulled the head. That piston, that cylinder actually kind of got me a little upset, but the rest of the walls look perfectly fine. You know, I did a compression check after I did the initial break-in, and it held 195 pounds all across. So kind of tells you that, again, goes back to the machine work and the simple braking that I told you guys about. It works, man. I mean, we put it on the dyno, and you guys, I'm sure you will see in the other video that it wasn't smoking. I mean, you know, we're throwing that much boost at it. I mean, we're just starting, but you couldn't see any smoke. I mean, the only thing you can probably see in the video is every time he lets off, there's a puff of grayish smoke, and that's actually the ignite because it runs kind of rich for a split second. And yeah, it was on the ignite red, by the way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do power pulls, power numbers, and then start working on the drivability stuff on pump E85. Yeah, so that's that. Also, what I'm gonna do is, if you guys look over here, this is actually where the gasket popped. So it burnt a little bit over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Scotch Brite that very carefully, because you don't want to get Scotch Brite anywhere in the engine because that will eat the bearings. It's like fine sandpaper pretty much. So very carefully I'm gonna Scotch Brite this, make it as clean as possible, and then I'm gonna put a shred edge. So I'm gonna put this thing. This is a very straight piece of metal. That's why it's called a straight edge. Literally, this thing is like perfectly straight. So what we do is we basically put the straight edge here, right? And then I'm gonna start sliding feeler gauges underneath and see if it's warped. And if it is, it'll basically tell me, you know, depending on what feeler gauge I can shove in there. There's a limit to it, but anything off the top of my head, anything like over 2000s, which that shouldn't even be the case because this is CNC decked. You know what I mean? So if it is warped on over here, then the motor has to come out again. So because we gotta machine that. But if that, God forbid, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But if that does happen, we're going aluminum rod. We're going all out this time. But that's not gonna happen because I'm broke. So yeah, that's the plan today. And then get some GTR assembly because I got 3 pistons and rods I still gotta put in.
This is other Corey, by the way. He's a newer guy.
How's it going?
What's up, man? How are you?
All right, so like I was mentioning in the last video, over here on the valve reliefs, it has sharp edges. So what I do is I take a piece of sandpaper and I just lightly sand it, just so it gets a little less rough. Another thing worth noting is whenever you assemble a V6 and you get aftermarket pistons, or even the pistons and rods, or even the stock ones, what they have is an offset wrist pin. So the wrist pin will be offset to one side. So that's why you always have to assemble it with the arrow pointing towards the front of the motor. There's a reason they put that there, because the pin is offset. On the Evos, they don't have an offset pin. But on V-style motors, because of the dynamics of the motor and how it actually sits, you know, the way it sits sideways, as opposed to an inline motor that doesn't have gravity fighting against it, they offset the pin, so basically makes power more effortlessly, so to speak. Just like any other piston ring pack, this oil scraper goes on. Okay, so what you gotta make sure is that whenever you put it on the piston, these ends don't overlap, okay? They gotta be perfectly butted. So, in front of the motor, the scraper will go over here. So it'll go towards the intake manifold. Okay, then you have the top and bottom oil scraper rings. So the top one will go on this side. Yeah, I'm just showing you guys. I mean, if anybody's assembling this, it comes with its own instructions, so you can't really fuck this up. And then the other one goes on the bottom. And sometimes you'll have the middle scraper pop out on you and give you a hard time. But we don't take no for an answer, do we, Josh?
No.
So these rings you can actually assemble by hand, but the top and bottom compression rings you do not want to assemble by hand. You want to use the piston tool. Okay, so when that happens, we basically find our point again. Okay. Try it again. Failure is not an option here. Okay, that's it. And then what you want to do is you kind of want to squeeze it and make sure it'll actually squeeze, and that kind of tells you if it's overlapped or not. Piston rings have already been cleaned with ATF, as you can see. Okay. So what I like to do for final assembly, take one of these towels, wipe them, okay? Give it a touch of brake clean and then spray it off with air. This kind of gets rid of anything that's on there, kind of evaporates. Yeah. So when you put a top ring on, if you've deburred the edges after setting ring gaps and you haven't fucked the ring up by bending it excessively, it should rock like this. It should be perfectly fine in there, okay? Now what you also do is you check the side clearance with a feeler gauge of the ringland and the ring itself. Again, every piston, every manufacturer is going to have their own specs. Okay, so this is how it goes in the motor. So this is the front of the motor. The second compression ring is going to face downwards. The top compression ring is going to face towards the intake manifold. We've already cleaned the cylinder, but what I'm going to do is clean it one more time. This time with brake cleaner. Again, just to make sure everything that's in there kind of evaporates, and then hit it with the shop air, and then oil it. Oiling is also very important. You're gonna put non-synthetic oil. Okay, you want something that's just SA, just some dyno oil. And what that does is make sure it's not too slippery, so it actually seats the rings. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna clean this. Also, while I do that, I make sure I get the crank journal too, if you want to point it over there. Yeah. The crank journal where the rod's gonna sit. So I make sure there's nothing on there. OEM bearings in this.
OEM for these?
Yep, OEM bearings for these.
Why is that? Is there a reason why?
They work great.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with any build. I mean, even with the Evos, you can go with OEM bearings. Just because there's no way these aftermarket companies have invested so much time and money into R&D.
Yeah, like a manufacturer
in the
would.
beginning, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And theoretically speaking, as long as you're not flexing anything, which you shouldn't be doing in the first place, mm-hmm. you're gonna be fine with OEM bearings. In fact, the OEM bearings are almost always superior to anything aftermarket you can find.
Really?
Yeah, I use King bearings in mine because that's what I've used in basically every Evo motor I've built. I've actually never opened a pack of ACL bearings in my life. Mm-hmm. Not discrediting it, just another manufacturer. I mean, some people swear by it. I've had no issues with Kings and OEMs. OEMs for GTOs, I haven't assembled. And the benzo motors that we used to do, those are all OEMs too. And then it's a little easier to basically pick a size, so you can actually adjust clearances a little more easily. Mm-hmm. Versus like, if you order a King bearing set, you're either getting a standard size or a thou over. So it's kind of, it's kind of hard to adjust like that. Mm-hmm. That's why I was mentioning swapping around bearings last time around. Yeah. And all this obviously affects oil pressure. I mean, these actually, they were dead on every single one of them. I was actually blown away. Because even the benzo ones weren't that accurate. Mm. The bearing itself, obviously, I just blew it off, so I know there's nothing on there. So what I do is I'll put a little bit of assembly lube, okay, and I'll mix it with the oil that's going to be running in the car. So just like that. Because if you use just assembly lube, depending on what lube you use, it may be too thick. And I don't like that because you can actually feel the friction when you try to spin the motor over. That's never good, you know. You want it obviously to spin over freely, but not with that much friction. Like it just, I like using this better. It makes like a perfect viscosity, and I haven't had issues with it. Or you have a ring compressor. Again, double checking where my rings are sitting. Okay. And she goes. Like that.
That's crazy. What the hell?
Yeah. Ring compressors that are bore specific make this job so much easier.
Little cozy thing.
The bore. It's exactly the bore size. You know, it's 95 millimeters. I also have it for the pistons. I have the standard 20 over, 40 over. Alright. That's kind of the shop dog. Because it's kind of hard to just pull it up. So you take the hammer, you take the end of it. Obviously it has to be soft. You don't want to, you know, be smacking aluminum with a hard hammer. And then you tap it up slowly until it reaches the journal. Looks like I'm making out with it, doesn't it? Look at
a little bit.
That's it.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah. That was pretty rad. Wow.
A perfect mixture. Tanks. Same side, okay? Alright, that's that. Now, I don't have the crank bolt right now, but in order for me to basically be able to obviously put that rod bolt in, I kind of gotta turn it. What I don't want to do is I don't want to turn the crank itself and have the rod basically fall off. Because what happens is I'll actually get a tiny bit of oil like seeping between the rod big end and the bearing itself, and that just paranoids the shit out of me, dude. So what I like to do is I like to hold it like that while I turn it so it doesn't go down. And now I can put the bolts in. Okay, so these are the rod bolts, right? It looks exactly like mine did, but these are 7/16, like the diameter of the shank, instead as opposed to the Evo ones, which are usually 3/8. Well, not usually, they're 3/8 unless you go with like an aluminum rod or like a you know, like a crazy high horsepower rated rod. So these actually, in order to stretch these, you gotta go to 95 to 100 foot-pounds. That's tighter than most wheels on a car. And this is a little bolt like this. So this kind of like gives you an idea of like the dynamics that the engine is in during operation. Because if this single part fails, even on one side of the rod, you'll spin a bearing. So it kind of makes you appreciate like all this technology and stuff that go inside, you know, these aftermarket engine parts. Because if it weren't for these guys working in perfect harmony, you wouldn't be able to make the power you did. You know, it's just like a little 4-banger. I mean, making 800 in a, you know, little 4-banger 2-liter, you know, I mean, it takes a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Think of it like 10-15 years ago, if people were trying to make that power, it would cost like 4 or 5 times the amount, you know? Everything had to be custom made. Now all these companies have all these parts pretty much on shelf that you can buy.
Very true.
Yeah. Alright, so I put the moly lube on the shank and on the head of the bolt, like underneath the bolt. So the reason you do this is to get an accurate torque reading. So if you don't, what'll happen is this will get hot and it'll actually throw off the reading. So like threads will expand and it will actually like basically read a certain torque, but it's not actually that torque. It'll be lower or higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why you use moly lube. And what I try to do is I try to evenly coat all of the threads like that. You know, you can get a little messy with it, it doesn't matter. It's better to have too much than too little of this, because if you have too little, you're just gonna have to pull it out and put more back in there, because it's probably not gonna stretch to the right amount. And this is just one of those things, like, this is why we stretch rod bolts, or I stretch. Like I have never assembled the motor without stretching rod bolts. Once or twice at the dealer I have, because that was a method they used, and I didn't have a way to stretch it back then. Put it down. You see those?
Yeah.
I put that mark on there whenever I tighten something, so I know it's tightened, so I don't have to be like, did I tighten that?
Yeah.
That's the worst thing when you're, you know, doing a $20,000 build and you're like, is it tight? I mean, you can always double check, but you know what I mean, like.
Yeah. Peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay, so these rods are actually doweled. Okay, so what that means is basically it doesn't just go on perfectly like a powder metal rod will. So you actually have dowels on there, and you gotta basically like suck it on the actual big end of the rod. So what I do is I'll take, you know, the proper size, and I'll snug this side a little bit, and I'll snug this side a little bit, sort of evenly until, you know, it actually bottoms out. The socket's kind of acting up today, I think. Yeah, the teeth are done. Okay, now we stretch the rod bolt. Rod bolt stretch gauge. And what you'll notice with the 7/16 bolts is they are almost identical in length all the time. The 3/8 are going to be off all the time. I don't know why that is, but okay, so I zeroed out, right? And I kind of do this just to make sure it's zeroed. Okay, it's zeroed. So now I know that this is zeroed to the basically the side you're standing at. So now what I'll do is I'll look at the manufacturer's specifications, and they'll basically give me a torque and a stretch reading. So they'll be like, okay, from 95 to 100 foot-pounds, you should the rod bolt should be stretched from 6 thousandths and 4 10,000ths to 6 and 8 10,000ths. So my goal is to basically achieve that with the lowest amount of torque. Okay, and it's not really a goal, but it'll be ideal if you know, get it the first time on the lowest torque reading. That would be ideal, because this can fool you, but that cannot. This can always be inaccurate, but that cannot, because that's on the dial indicator. So you're literally checking the bolt stretch. I mean, it's the most accurate way of doing it. So I really need that crank bolt. It starts to get harder every time I pull in the cylinder. What you don't want to do is mix these rod caps. Like, don't mix this one with that one. I'm just being silly. Nobody should. If you mix rod caps, probably shouldn't have some of the motors soon. Or you should work a lot cleaner. Okay. Snug, one even pull. So this is gonna be over here. This is ridiculous. I need a crank bolt. Okay. So, if you can see, we're at 65. Okay, so that's right dead nuts in the stretch that I want to fall in. So that's perfect. I know 95 foot-pounds, that's stretched properly. So we're gonna loosen and we're gonna do the same thing with the other bolt. We're getting a GTR so we can build a motor.
Yeah, I'm not at that level
So
yet,
let's start
buddy.
with the Evo first.
Yeah, I was like, let's get cams and valve springs first. Retainers.
Also, I've seen people, like the way they torque it, I've seen them do like, they'll go half torque on one and then they'll go full torque on the other one, and then they'll come back and torque it, or like some weird procedure. It's really personal preference, but I've always done it one even pull, because if you think about it, it's again, it's a doweled rod. So when you know, torque it all the way, it's not doing this thing. It's perfectly flat, just one side's getting tight. So I don't know, I like doing it this way. I've never had issues with it, never. So I keep on doing the same thing, and that kind of throws me off. If I do half on one side, go on the other side, like that'll confuse me. So I snug it up, and then I'll just go straight to the torque. The shank length was a little bit off. You know, I was telling you the 7/16ths are usually all the same.
Right.
And this one wasn't, which is okay. You know, it happens. I mean, it's not. Doesn't mean it's a weaker rod bolt. It just means it's a little longer or a little shorter. So I stretched that one. Now I'm gonna stretch this one. So again, snug, snug, one even pull. Six and 4/10 thou. It's dead center where I want it to be. 95 degree. Stretch them properly. At this point, I bring the magic marker out. Mark, 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 mark. All right. That's that. Another thing you check when you assemble any motor, connecting the rod side clearance. Okay, so that's 7/1000. That fits perfectly. Eight thousandths fits perfectly. Let's try 10,000. Let's jump up and down. Okay, 10,000ths is snug, but I can drag it, so it's 10,000ths clearance right there. So if you have too much clearance, what will happen is actually, so the crankshaft has holes drilled in it, right, for oil to get through. So it builds oil pressure through all these galleys. Then if you look over here, for instance, like if you look on this side, the center of the crank basically provides oil to the rod bearings, right? So there's always pressure, like a layer of oil, obviously between the bearing and the crank. If you have too much clearance on the side, it'll actually bleed out from the sides. So you may or may not run into oil pressure issues. Depends on how high you rev it, whatnot. If this is too tight, it'll have kind of the, I don't want to say the opposite effect, but what will happen is basically metals expand, obviously, right? This is cast, this is billet, it's gonna expand a little differently. If it's too tight, this may expand, like let's say if it's like at 3 or 4/1000ths, may expand enough for it to lock up on the crank, and then it'll throw a rod. So you want it to be, it's just like anything else, you want it to be a perfect clearance. Again, it'll say on the manual, I think on these it actually says 12 to 20 thou, something stupid like that, but 10 has never been an issue. This is, granted, you're using a single rod per journal engine or crank. So what that means is I have one rod cap here on one journal, and then I have another one here. So if it's like on a big block Chevy or a small block, they'll have one journal and they'll have 2 rods on it. So that's a lot more critical to run bigger clearances there, because the rods are rubbing against each other too, creating friction. So on these, it's not as big of a deal. Like, in all honesty, if this was even 6/1000ths, I would send it because I know it would work. Mine is actually, one of them is 5/1000ths, and we heat cycled it on the dyno, threw 36 pounds of boost at it, and perfectly fine. So if it was a big block Chevy, it would have thrown all rods probably. So that's that. All right, so now we're gonna put this aside and we're gonna take the pan off and see what the fuck's up with that. The thing is that when we cycle that water in there, some of it actually, when we're trying to crank it and get the water out, some of it kind of like got in the oil system. So what I'm gonna try to do whenever I take that piston out is actually, you know, keep an eye out on that, see if I can, see if the bearings look good. If they look really bad, then I'll just pull the motor and just redo everything. But if they look okay, which I think they should, because you know they saw healthy oil pressure, then I won't touch the bearings. I'll just put the old bearing back in, because it's kind of pointless to do it on one cylinder, just because, you know, I'm gonna take care of one cylinder. It doesn't make sense if I put new bearings in one. You know what I mean? And if there is any damage, or if there is any oiling issues, you would actually see it on number 4 better, because that's the last one that gets fed with oil. So this is the most vulnerable cylinder as far as oil pressure goes. So
Cylinder 4, you said?
Cylinder 4, yeah, because it's furthest away from the oil pump.
Got it.
Bolt off, because I gotta take this off before I can actually get the oil pan off. Should be pretty straightforward. Should take us like 10 minutes to get that piston out. The point of what I'm doing to it now is basically getting it back to service without getting crazy with it and redoing everything, you know, just getting it back to service. This thing has to make power again by next week, so I'm gonna do whatever I can to make it happen, and I will make it happen, I tell you. It's got to break 800 here, man. If it doesn't, it'll... No, even if it makes 750, I'll be happy with it. That'll be pretty... You saw how fast it came on boost, huh?
Yeah, it was crazy. The whole car lunged forward once it started getting the power band.
Yeah, it moved some air, man. What it was supposed to do, like that gasket.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's not supposed to come out this pipe.
That's not supposed to come out of this big black pipe, I tell you. Okay, that's that. Filled that some bitch pretty good. Now, when you take it off like this, the only thing is that you gotta make sure you flatten it out before you put it back in so you don't have any leaks. You can try to shove a screwdriver like that. Watch the screwdriver break.
What happened?
Watch the screwdriver break. Alright, so it sealed pretty good.
That's a good thing. Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, it'll bend a little bit, but it's fine. There are better ways than doing that, but I'm not gonna use that right now. If it was aluminum, I would be really, you know, hesitant in doing this. Yeah, but it's not aluminum. You see how it got a little milky? You can already see.
Yeah.
How it's a little milky.
Uh huh. Because it mixed.
Just a tiny bit. Not bad at all, actually. You barely got any oil. I mean, any water in there. Well, no, you got a little bit. There you see? That's all water.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I got it in the bearings too, you can see. So next, we'll take the cap off and see how it looks. Fucking water. There's nothing in the pickup though. That's good. There's no like crap silicone. Water in there already?
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. All right, here it is. Oh, it's here. That's as perfect of a bearing as you can have. As you can see, there's some thrust loads on the sides because it actually thins out on the sides when it does this, when it strokes.
Mm-hmm.
So, completely normal. Nothing concerning. Quite a bit of fucking oil. I mean, water in there, so. As you can see, again, it's, you know, you can't feel anything. It's just going through the first layer. You know, it takes a bit of a beating. The top one does. This is the top one, just because it actually puts pressure on the top.
Oh, I see.
But feel comfortable reusing these, man. Like I said, this is if the last one looks like this, I'm not even gonna bother pulling the other ones, man. I know it's gonna be fine. That is as fucking perfect as you can get it. Okay, so let's see what.
Just clean it out.
Yeah, that's all. Look at that. This is perfect as you can get anything. Really, there's no damage on the ring lands. Nothing crazy. Gonna put a fresh set of rings. Gotta clean that out. Proof. 4,000 piston at the wall. No scuffing here. No scuffing on the cylinder. No, it's this one too. No, it will eat bearings, bro. No, seriously, that will literally pop a bearing. Oh, yeah, because it has the oil things and those wheels up in there. You sure? Yeah. Nothing.
Does that test for any type of flex or?
So basically what'll happen is when you have a head gasket failure, typically, depending on what material the head is and what material the block is, the aluminum one, whichever is the softer metal, will work.
Right.
So it'll actually indent it a little bit. Mine you can see because it burnt it. So you can like see it torched the head. But the block also you want to check because even though it's a stronger material, it's still vulnerable to, you know, it's a lot of pressure. So what you do is you put this flat edge, this straight edge on there, and then you try to run this feeler gauge underneath it. Now this is where I had that head gasket failure, so if I can get anything underneath there, it's gonna be a no-go pretty much. So. See, I can't even get the 2000s in there, so. Say hello, but it doesn't even, see, it doesn't even.
What's to say hello?
This needs to slide underneath it for it to be work, so.
Right.
And over here, I'm not trying to fool myself, so, you know, I'm gonna try to get it underneath there because, you know, if it is, I need to address it, so. And that one's good. No, it's right there. I can't even shove the 2000s in there. That's the thinnest one I have. Alright guys, it's official. Josh is about to make a career change. So this end is a little bit nicked and I had it on there and this was pushing it up a tiny bit. And I'm like, oh, never mind, it's warped, the motor's coming out. And he's like, are you sure? It's not because it got, you know, it's nicked over there? I'm like, fucking turn it around. He was right. So congratulations, sir. You're the new employee at 5150. I'm just gonna leave my tools here. You can use everything, just make sure you clean it.
Yeah, right.
I'll see you guys later, I guess. I want to check when you're putting a straight edge on the block is you're gonna want to measure over here between the cylinders, because usually this is where it gets warped. This is where the pressure usually lets out. I already know it's not the issue, like it didn't happen there, but still, you know, it's a good idea to check. And also you put it straight across and you check like this again to make sure nothing goes through.
Corey wanted to show you guys something. You go ahead and tell him what you just told me.
Alright, so basically somebody had built this motor and, you know, they thought they knew what they were doing, but piston to wall clearance should not move that much.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's excessive piston to the wall. If anything, this motor should be rebuilt.
Again. Again. This is an Evo 10 that Ronnie recently assembled. I really like the Volks on it. TE 37s are always a very classy choice. Ever since we started making these videos for you guys, one thing that they told me, well, at least Corey at the shop here said that there's been a lot more 8s and 9s that have been showing up to the shop. Look at this. There's this really clean Evo 9, but it's got something I need, guys. This thing has something I need. It's got a JDM rear. God, that car's loud. JDM rear looks so good. Dude, if you're watching this video, your car is really, really nice. But yeah, in the past times I've come here, I never really used to see that many 8s and 9s. Only this one that was here with the front facing turbo. Yeah, see? A little boop, go fast button. This is a Subaru that's getting built by the other Corey that you guys saw. The one that showed you the crazy piston and wall over there with that car. And then this is another Evo 8 or 9, or 9 I mean, that I think this guy actually follows me on Instagram. I'm pretty sure he messaged me like my car's there or something. I'm pretty sure this is him. Always a pleasure. Sure, another Ronnie built session wrapped up.
Moral of the story, don't give up if something happens. I mean,
and run precision oil.
Run precision oil and a turbo, man.
And a turbo.
Fuck. Okay, here, let's go to this debate real quick. How many cars have broken records without precision turbos? Let that sink in. It works, man. I mean, I don't know what else to say, bro. Run precision. No, seriously, the oil, because I got some water mixed in with my oil. If it wasn't for that oil, I mean, like the water's viscous. I don't know how else to explain it. It works. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mostly because if something goes well for me, I like to represent it.
Of course.
I'm not discrediting any other oil. I used to use Brad Penn for the longest time, man. But, you know, it works. It's a little expensive, the precision stuff, but...
cheap insurance.
Yeah, cheap insurance when you're spending thousands of dollars on a build. So.
Yeah, of course, man. All right, man. So, well, I'll see you soon.
All right, man.
All right, take care. Yeah, you too, man. Have a good night. This is by far the earliest I've ever left 5150. Look at that. It is currently 9:27. That's crazy. I'm always used to leaving the shop at like 1 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock, but it was pretty. It was a good session. I hope you guys enjoyed all the info that Ronnie dropped for you guys with the GTR motor and also his personal build. Finally back home after another fun session filming at 5150. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you guys did, be sure to drop a like on this video, hit subscribe. There's a ton of Evo stuff coming your guys' way. Even after Ronnie's car is finished, there's a ton of other side projects that are Evo related and also some other motors he's going to build in the future. So if you guys want to see crazy horsepower, you guys should just tune in now because it's coming, trust me. Thank you guys always for your continuous support. It feels good to start getting back in the rhythm of making these videos for you guys. I definitely missed it. There's a lot of changes coming your guys' way. Once I move, which is going to happen really, really soon, it's going to be a lot easier to get back in the rhythm of everything and just kind of growing and progression. And if you guys have been following this channel, you guys know that I started making these videos not in a conceited way or like to try to flex what I have on YouTube, because I feel like a lot of YouTubers do that, but more of like show you guys the growth and development and just watching me grow as a person and overcome a bunch of things, whether it's through building cars or dealing with my breakup, that maybe you guys will pull some positivity out of it as well and, you know, add that into your own life or get some motivation out of it, if that makes any sense at all. As always, work hard, stay humble. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.